Don, thanks so much for doing this, man. I appreciate you coming in and joining us in person. How have the last, 2 weeks now been for you since you were named the CEO?
It's only been, it feels like 2 years. It's been incredible, amazing. I mean, what an amazing opportunity to have your first week in a new job be at the CrossFit Games. Just an incredible experience, getting a chance to meet folks on the team, members of the community, affiliates, partners, be there as both a spectator and a new member of the team. It's been incredible.
Yeah. Just kind of start from the beginning with CrossFit in particular. I know you talked about this in your interview with Stefan, but maybe for anyone that hasn't heard that yet, how did you find CrossFit in the first place?
Yeah, so kind of going back, I grew up playing sports. I described myself growing up as an aggressively mediocre athlete. I really wanted to be good, and I was always the kid who had to overcome a lack of skill with extra effort. Ended up playing rugby in college, loved that, played for a while after college. My body started falling apart, got into triathlon, did that for about 10 years. And unfortunately, at the end of that period, started having really meaningful back issues. I blew up my shoulder playing rugby. So I got to a point in my life where I really wanted to be active. I wanted to continue to be an athlete. But I had these issues. I'd heard a lot about CrossFit. I was intrigued by it, but I was actually really worried about, I'd heard about, hey, CrossFit can be dangerous. And so finally, ultimately, I had a really good friend of mine who said, hey, let's give this a shot. And so walked into flagship CrossFit in San Francisco and was immediately hooked. Absolutely, the first month kicked my butt, humbled me. I thought I was in good shape, but I was totally intrigued by it. Fast forward now, I've been doing it for 8 years. The last 7 years, I ended up shifting jobs down on the peninsula, and so I've been going to a box in Redwood City, and it's been incredible. So, I've never felt healthier. My back issues, the focus on mobility and strength, my back has not felt this good in 20 years. And I've met this incredible community of people who are now super close friends.
Let's go back and just learn a little bit about you, but where did you grow up?
So I grew up in northern New Jersey, a little town about 10 miles outside New York City, little town called Allendale. Grew up in, it was this kind of Leave It to Beaver, idyllic, little community. Everyone knew each other. And born into incredible family, mom and dad, 2 younger brothers, and was super fortunate as a kid.
Mm-hmm. And how did that lead you ultimately to the Naval Academy?
Yeah, so, it's funny, if my father didn't spend time in the military, but everyone who's met him assumes that he did. In all the best ways. My father is of German ancestry, and in some respects, grew up in this family where there's a really big focus on discipline and structure. And I think as a kid, that actually really appealed to me. And so as I was thinking about, at age 17 in high school, thinking about what I wanted to do in my college experience, there was a really big part of me that wanted to serve. That was something my parents really emphasized in all of us growing up, was the importance of giving back and serving. And then there was honestly a notion of the challenge associated with that really, really appealed to me. Hey, this was something that I, didn't fully understand as a 17-year-old what I was getting myself into, but I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to challenge me. And I hope that coming through that I'd have a set of life experiences that would be incredibly valuable for me.
At that age, I think a lot of kids would be faced with that sort of task, would shy away from it. Why do you think, what was it in you that made you want to charge towards it and push through an experience like that?
I think it's, this theme of wanting to see and tackle challenges was something I was exposed to as a kid. It's something about sports that always appealed to me. Getting out there on the field, getting out there in the courts, being really challenged and seeing that hard work and grit and determination could lead to better outcomes. And so I think that's something I was really fortunate to be exposed to as a kid. It's something certainly that my parents really focused on. And so I think that those elements really stood out to me at that age.
Yeah, and it sounds like in each one of those, there's an element of a team environment kind of involved. Is that something you always gravitated towards? I mean, there are some individualistic sports, but, looking at ourselves, me and Sean both played team sports and kind of orient ourselves in that way.
Yeah, no question. I'd say looking back, I've been so fortunate to have so many life experiences where I was surrounded by great leaders and had the opportunity to learn, whether it's the Naval Academy or in the Marine Corps and the jobs that I've had. But I'll always say I've learned as much about leadership from playing team sports, as I have any of those other experiences, both as a learning what it means to be a great teammate first, So let's forget about leadership for a second. What does it mean to be part of a team, to support the team, to put the team first and your teammates first, as then the foundation for what it takes to lead and lead well?
I was to say, and you touched on like the seeking adversity a little bit, and I think we do that every day in the gym, right? We willingly put ourselves in a position to be vulnerable. I know you talked about that with Stefan as well, and by seeking that adversity, we basically seek that humility on a daily basis. And I'm curious if there are any other kind of touch points along the way where you feel like, whether it's a Naval Academy or moments like that in the gym, that have kind of set you here on this path.
Oh, without question. And I guess looking back to some degree, I'm kind of a glutton for punishment, but the Naval, anyone
fit right in at CrossFit.
Totally. Anyone who chooses to go into the Naval Academy or to the military in general, like, life's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Yeah. But there was an element to that really appealed to me. Sports has always been that way. When I finished playing rugby, I got into triathlon, and I was like, okay, what's the first distance Great Olympic? Okay, what's the next harder? Okay, half. Okay, what's after that? Okay, Ironman. And there's something about challenging, yourself and working really hard and pushing through those moments of adversity that are, I think, foundational to growth and can be exceptionally rewarding. And that was, my first experience with CrossFit. It's, we all have the same story to some degree. I walk into the box. I had been working out 3 days a week, lifting. I'd been running a ton. I thought I was in great shape, and I got absolutely worked. I came in last in every workout for I don't know how long, probably the first month. And my reaction was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was the first workout you did? Do you remember?
I wish I could remember. I don't. All I remember is that I hurt really bad for like 3 weeks after that.
I always feel like there's two types. You either remember it vividly, or you completely blacked out like the month just to get it out of your rear view, for sure.
How do you go from Marine Corps now to Stanford?
Yeah. So, I had this incredible experience in the Marine Corps, and talk about being in an environment where, you have the opportunity to learn what it means to be part of a great team. And as, one of the gifts of the Marine Corps for me was there's very few places will give you the opportunity to lead at age 21 or 22. And so I had this incredible experience, served with amazing men and women. I'd gotten back from overseas, did a couple overseas deployment, got back from Iraq in 2003, had loved it, but was ready for kind of the next phase in my life and my career. Problem was I had absolutely no idea what that looked like. I'd spent the last 10 years between the Naval Academy and the Marine Corps on active duty. I was an infantry officer. It wasn't particularly obvious to me, how those skills would translate. And so decided, I think maybe I'd like to do something in business. I'd studied computer engineering at the Naval Academy, so I was interested in technology and thought, well, maybe going back to grad school will give me a good opportunity to one, both learn what's out there and what's possible and how my skills might translate, and get a basic foundation of business that I can apply in this next phase. So that led me to Stanford.
It just kind of off the first surface level glance, it seems like a very big departure from what you did previously. East Coast, even the Naval Academies, Maryland and Annapolis, right? And you're on the military side, and then suddenly you go to California in the heart of Silicon Valley in this tech school that's, kind of on the other side of the country. And what was that decision process like, or was it something that just felt right off the beginning?
It's when I went to the Naval Academy, to that choice, one of the things that I think is really amazing about the Naval Academy and the military in general is, to some degree, part of that experience, you're forced to experience all these things in your life you may not opt into. So visiting parts of the world, getting exposed to different types of people. So while I was at the Naval Academy, got a chance to spend some time in San Diego on deployment, traveled a bunch around the country, got stationed initially at Camp Pendleton. And, I was 22, 23 years old. San Diego is not a terrible place to spend
yeah,
time
it's true.
at that age. And for me, there were no bugs. The weather was incredible. I was like, this is pretty amazing. Why doesn't everyone live here? And, for me, it was at that age, I was just really excited to experience different things. And so different places to live, different types of roles, and kind of fell in love with the West Coast at that point.
You go from a military environment, and then you get into a tech business environment. My brother's in tech, so I know a little. I mean, I hear stories about what kind of environment that is.
Yep.
How did you make the adjustment from very regimented military life to a business that, to me, seems like it's a lot more free form and just kind of hang loose sometimes?
For sure. It's funny. So my first job outside of the Marine Corps was an internship at Google. And if you can imagine a corporate culture that is more different from the Marine Corps being an infantry officer than Google, I'd be hard pressed to identify it. And I remember showing up there the first day, and I didn't know how to dress or how to speak. So I was in a suit, which I just looked completely ridiculous. Like, who is this guy? Are the auditors coming in? Like, what happened? And, the person I went there to meet was like, take off the tie immediately and the coat. And then we walked around the corporate campus, and I was like, where am I? Like, this is like a theme park. And what I'll say actually was really, really interesting. There were things about the Marine Corps that I loved. The Marine Corps is this incredible institution, but it's also a really big, large bureaucracy. It's 200 and something thousand people. It has to operate that way. And there were elements of that experience to me that, I was a little frustrated by, to be candid. And I was looking in the next phase of my career for an environment that challenged the status quo, that embraced innovation, that created a real kind of culturally a real meritocracy where if you worked really hard and you performed, you could to some degree chart your own path. And Google was all of those things. And so when I showed up there, I was very nervous because I had not worked a day outside the Marine Corps in my life, and I thought I was going to make a fool of myself. But I loved it from day one. And what I learned pretty quickly was that, at first blush, there wasn't a lot of commonality. Like, I'm used to carrying a ruck around and a rifle and working with Marines. What translates? What I learned pretty quickly actually was that all the leadership skills and experiences that I took from the time in the Marine Corps were super relevant. At the end of the day, people are looking for a lot of really common things in leadership. They want to be inspired. They want to be supported. They want to know that they matter, that their work matters. I had to learn how to translate those experiences and skills into a very different cultural context in how I communicated and how I engaged with the team. But I was really kind of pleasantly surprised to see how much of it, did in fact set me up well for the work that I did there.
What were maybe some of the road bumps in that process? Because, you go from people in fatigues to Birkenstocks and
people sometimes not wearing pants.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think the first thing I like to tell this story, I had to learn really quickly how to communicate. In the Marine Corps, you have this, let's say, very direct and very candid environment where if you're effed up, you can tell someone you're effed up, and the other person's like, you're right, I'm effed up, I'm going to go fix it. And there's kind of a trust there that makes that possible. Showing up at Google saying you're effed up didn't necessarily resonate. So I learned pretty quickly that, okay, I remember I had this one moment where I had someone on the team who I just started. I was a couple weeks in, and this person on the team, we had a meeting with my manager and some of the other leadership, and this person was going to present. And I asked this person, hey, do you want to sit down ahead of the meeting to just review it? And this person looked at me and was like, look, I'm good. New guy, back off. So we get into the meeting. It's a complete train wreck, disaster. And I'm sitting there and I'm sure smoke is just coming out of my ears. But I'm thinking to myself, do not react the way that you would have in the Marine Corps. Dial it back. So we have this, meeting ends and sit down with this person and we talk, and I have what I think is this incredibly kind of balanced and straightforward conversation. And, this person walks out and I'm patting myself on the back. A couple hours later, a buddy of mine is like, what the heck did you say to so-and-so? They're talking about this Marine with PTSD who is going crazy.
What?
Kind of half in jest. But I learned really quickly that I had to course correct. That was a really big thing for me. And I think that's true of a lot of environments. That's a big thing for me now about really understanding. I've been in the CrossFit community for 8 years, but there's a lot that I have to learn about how we communicate and what's important to us and what's important to the community.
What was your first sort of big break in that environment where you got the promotion or the job where you said, okay, I'm in this?
It's probably there were two things I'd touch on. The first was I was super lucky to get connected at Google to another veteran, another Naval Academy grad, who was generous enough to spend time with me, help translate my resume to a recruiter. It's one of the challenges that veterans often face. How do we communicate what we've done in a way that resonates and translates? That was a really big one for me and led to an internship, which gave me the opportunity to show that I could add value. The next big break for me was kind of fast forward 2 years. I got a call from a friend of mine who's working at Facebook. So this is 2008. Facebook was starting this operations team and needed to grow this team that would support small and medium-sized businesses. Now, keep in mind, I've got exactly 18 months of actual experience outside the Marine Corps. I'm effectively a complete peon in the group that I'm in at Google. I am not qualified whatsoever for this job to kind of run and build this team. But for a variety of reasons, I had the opportunity to come in and do this job. And again, I felt half exhilarated that I had the shot and half terrified that I was going to make a fool of myself. And, was really lucky enough to go into an environment at Facebook where if you worked really hard, if you were a great teammate, if you demonstrated you could solve problems, then you could almost take on unlimited scope. And that was a huge break for me. And I made a million mistakes, but I tried a lot of the things that I learned in the Marine Corps around, you never give up, you get it done no matter what it takes. When you make mistakes, you own up to them, you own them, and you course correct and move forward. Those paid huge dividends for me.
It sounds, just hearing some of the parallels you mentioned in a previous interview about, coming in the Marine Corps as a second lieutenant, and you're the youngest, the least experienced, and you have to lead in that environment. So it seems like there was almost a natural parallel there.
That's exactly right. It's not something I would have appreciated when I was in the Marine Corps, but one of the challenges there in that environment is, you get rotated in the military every couple of years. And when you show up in your next unit, in your next job, you're the new person. And that is true throughout your careers. You can be the most experienced person in the unit in terms of years, but have the most to learn. And so getting really good at understanding, listening, and learning, and being able to tap into the amazing folks who are around you is really important.
Yeah.
How did the opportunity then arise for you to now be named the CEO of CrossFit?
Yeah, so I spent the last 7 years working at a company called Athos, which was in the sports performance technology space. For me, coming out of that was post Pinterest. I left Pinterest. I really wanted to work on something that was the intersection of two things that I really loved, in this case being technology, sports, fitness, human performance, and got a chance to join this startup. Incredible journey. I learned a ton. My first time being a CEO, working in this space and domain, and I just fell in love with the idea of working on something that could help people and improve their health and fitness. Really with conviction around, we live in this society today that has this incredibly powerful technology that is richer than it's ever been. And yet, if you look at all the measures of health and happiness, they are heading in the wrong direction. And unfortunately, the solution for most people is clinical. It's drugs, it's hospital. Yet, if you look at, the most powerful way to help people through stuff like that is exercise, it's nutrition. And so I really wanted to work on something that could help people change their lives through a focus on nutrition, through a focus on fitness. And so that's where my head was at. And I was in a place of saying, look, I'm going to spend the rest of my career working in and around this space. And then I had a friend of mine who knew that I was obsessed with CrossFit and had heard about the role and the opportunity and said, hey, would you be interested in being considered? And I said, of course, absolutely. And, thinking it would be a huge long shot for me. And then had the opportunity to meet with, members of the board. And, here I am.
And throughout that process, I mean, the CEO position and some of the leadership in the company over the last 5 or 6 years has kind of been a revolving door. So throughout that, the interview and discovery process, why was CrossFit a good fit for you right now?
Yeah. So, I guess reinforcing what you started with, there's been a lot of change. And, one of the things that I've learned and experienced, change can be really, really hard for folks. And so I knew I was coming into a situation where there had been a lot of change. I looked at CrossFit as, seeing what it did for me, seeing what it did for the hundreds of people who I've trained with over the years, who are of every age, every level of fitness, you name it. I just had huge conviction personally that as big as CrossFit is, it can be 100x bigger. Like that, the opportunity is that big. We have something that's relevant for almost every human on the planet. And so that was a huge part of it for me. And then really looking at, I think, am I in a place in my career that by virtue of my experiences and what I've learned, where I can be helpful and have an impact in joining this team and helping the community move forward and realize this goal of reaching a heck of a lot more people. And I had this really interesting mix of experiences. I had my time in the Marine Corps, and a lot of the early roots of CrossFit are grounded in the military and DoD. I had this experience working with companies that worked with small and medium-sized businesses all around the world and understanding what it takes to support a community of small business owners and help them be successful, understanding what it takes to manage and build and scale a global business, and then having the individual experience of being a part of this community for the last 8 years. I felt like those experiences set me up well to hopefully come in and help the team and the community move this forward.
I think with all the change that's happened over the past couple of years, people are in the community at large a little unsure about how everything works now with CrossFit. What is the leadership structure there? If you can just sort of give us like a kind of a 101 on this, on the way things are structured and how your role plays into all that and how decisions are ultimately made.
Sure. So when you zoom out and look at HQ today, I'd say we have 3 primary business units, parts of the business that are focused around different parts of the CrossFit ecosystem. So we have a team focused on gyms, on affiliate owners. We have a team focused on training and EDU, led by Nicole. So Gary Gaines runs the affiliate team. And then we have the business of sport run by Justin Berg. We then have other functions within the company that are supportive of those respective teams and parts of the business. So we have a marketing function. We have a software engineering and product function. We have a human resources focused on supporting the overall team. We have a finance function, legal, et cetera. So that's in large part how the team is kind of structured and focused today.
How does a board and then you play into that?
Yeah, so my job, what I share with the team, my job is to support the team so that we can, I stole this straight up from John Wooden, who I think is one of the greatest leaders that's ever lived. And I think John Wooden said that, a leader's job is to help people achieve their best individually and, more importantly, collectively. So I'm a big believer in the servant leader model. My job is I work for the men and women on our team, and our job as a leadership team is to make sure we put them in a position where they can do their life's best work individually and collectively in service of this incredible mission we have of helping millions of people. And so what does that translate to? First and foremost, it translates to making sure we have a really, really crystal clear vision and strategy for where we're going. And that's not only important internally. In a community like ours, we have to communicate that externally because we have these incredibly important parts of our community, from members, CrossFitters, to affiliate owners, to partners, who are all, I think we've got this opportunity. We all benefit from a much larger ecosystem. Our job is to communicate that vision. That's first and foremost. And then 2, my job is to make sure that I spend a lot of time with our team to understand what are the obstacles they face day in and day out, so they can make really good decisions and really move really quickly. One of the things I've been sharing with our leadership team is I really believe very few decisions should be made at senior levels. If we do our jobs really well, we communicate where we're going, we communicate context, we hire great people, and then we put them in a position where they can run and execute, and we can have confidence we're all moving in the same direction.
Yeah. And kind of touching on that a little bit, even though there's been some a little bit of flux at the top, there's tremendous resources within the company. There are a lot of people that have been there for almost 20 years now. And so how do you balance the insight and the feedback that you get from them with your own instincts as a leader, knowing that you're trying to step into a place where there are people who have been here for decades?
Yeah. So I think is a great question. I think it starts with having real conviction around the long-term vision. I think the best organizations have incredible conviction and clarity and are very dogmatic about long-term where they're going. We will not waver from that. For us, that is about growth. That's about reaching more people around the world. We cannot waver. But we also need to be flexible about how we get there. And because whatever path we chart today, 3 months from now, we'll need to change. How do we know when it needs to change and what it should change to? We know that by listening. We listen to the men and women who are doing the work every day, who have this tremendous experience. And so I think one of the most important characteristics in great leaders is humility. And humility opens the door to listen and learn and be open to being wrong, and creates the conditions where people feel comfortable telling the CEO that his idea is a bad one. And so that's something that we'll work really hard on.
Yeah.
When you look at the state of the business as it is now, let's start with the strengths. What are the good things right now that CrossFit has going for it from a business standpoint?
Yeah. So, look, first and foremost, we have this extraordinary, what CrossFit does for people, the way it changes their life. I said this on the conversation with I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And we've had the conversation. Yep. Thousands of people who tell you these stories, they give me goosebumps every time. Mm-hmm. That is magic. That is an incredible asset. So first and foremost, we have that. That allowed us to build a brand that really punches above its weight. The number of people who know about CrossFit, who have heard what it does for people, is incredibly valuable. We have some challenges with the brand that we need to work through, but we need to kind of be resolute in our focus on preserving and managing the brand. 3, we have an incredible team internally. You touched on it, Tommy. Like, I've been blown away as I've met the men and women on this team who are full-time folks on our seminar staff, who are there not first and foremost because it's a job. They're there because they really believe like this is a calling, this is a mission, this is something that has purpose. That is a huge, huge asset for us. And then finally, I'd say, I think we have in this community and ecosystem, we have the opportunity where we've got all of these folks, I think, who can benefit from growth that we can leverage really, really well. I don't think we're doing that as well as we can right now, but I think that's a big opportunity. So I put those in the, kind of top of mind. Those are some of the biggest assets that we have.
As far as now challenges and things that need to improve, what are those?
Yeah. So first and foremost, as we've talked about, there's been a lot of change in flux within our team, within the community, within the ecosystem. You have the leadership changes. You have COVID that's had a huge impact on the business and the community. And so we have a lot of work to do to build, really starting with internally, and then partnering with folks outside the company as well. We've got to build a really, really strong culture. I think we are probably closer to people individually doing great work. Collectively, we are not where we need to be yet, and we need to build a culture internally where we are all aligned, moving in the same direction, supporting each other, where there's a high degree of trust built on transparency. First and foremost, that's the most important thing. And if we get that right, everything else is downstream of that. And so that's number one. Number two, I don't think we have yet the clarity of vision and strategy that we need, that we can communicate externally and internally so that we all understand where we're going and where we're moving. So that is a big priority of mine over the next couple months, is we're going to do that work to get to a place where we can communicate that vision and strategy. So those are probably the two biggest things that are top of mind.
And it's interesting because there is this huge network of affiliates globally that, in spite of all of that, have continued to charge forward. I mean, for you as someone stepping in as a new leader for the company, that has to be reassuring, at least to some extent. I'd imagine seeing the work that they've done, because they are kind of the foundation of everything.
No question. And I thank you for bringing this up, because I was remiss to mention it. When we talk about the impact, this magic of what people does, it's not CrossFit is this esoteric brand. It's the men and women in boxes around the world. It's the affiliate owners and it's the coaches who are showing up every day, no matter what's going on, the craziness, et cetera. They're putting in the work every day and they're changing lives. That is an extraordinary, valuable asset. It gives me a lot of confidence. It also I think it should give us at HQ a feeling of conviction and purpose around making sure we do everything we can to support them. That's our job. Make their job. They do exceptional work. They run great businesses. How do we help them?
The words like corporate and corporate culture, I think by many in this community are viewed as sort of bad words. You obviously need to have a structure in a business to be successful.
Yeah.
So how do you do that, but at the same time stay true to what sort of the core DNA of CrossFit is?
Yeah. So I think this is enormously important. We come back to the brand and the experience and the magic. That is our most important and valuable asset, and we cannot lose that. We can't lose that as part of the overall CrossFit experience as men and women experience it in boxes. We also can't lose that culturally, the essence of the culture at HQ that is so important. The first step in that is we have to really clearly articulate what that is. We have one of the biggest challenges I think we have is if we want to grow, I think most folks I've talked to would agree, maybe everyone, that we have an opportunity to grow and reach more people and impact more people around the world. To do that, we have to evolve the way we show up. We have to evolve and change and invest and be open to that. At the same time, we have to make sure we preserve and don't lose the essence and the magic of what CrossFit is and what helped us get this far. And to be able to do that, we have to be really, really crisp in what is the core that we cannot lose and we should never lose? And then what are the areas in which we should be open to and willing to experiment and test different ways of reaching people, different ways of telling our story that don't dilute or lose the brand, but allow us to reach more people?
It sounds exactly like how we approach training in the box. If
Exactly.
I'm being honest, right? We have to build that foundation of technique, consistency, and then intensity, and then be willing to expose yourself to these other areas of fitness that might humble you a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say, Sean, you mentioned one of the things that, coming back to what we talked about before, language matters a lot. So I'm trying to be very conscious of coming in. Someone on the team already gave me amazing feedback because I used this word that would have made sense in a technology environment that completely falls flat here. And so
Interesting.
What was it?
It was product. So I referred to CrossFit in as a product. And someone on the team was, and I was trying to make the comparison of the impact it has on people's lives.
Yeah.
But I was being imprecise with the language. And the language matters, and being able to communicate the essence of what I'm talking about. So that was a really good learning opportunity for me. And as we talk about, yes, there are things that we need to do to build a highly productive, highly engaged team that can go out and achieve great things, that some folks may articulate as corporate. I would articulate them as we're building an exceptional world-class team that can achieve great things. So I think the language matters a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of touching on something you just discussed with the feedback as far as language, and you mentioned early on in these first 100 days, 90 days, listening and learning are going to be important to you. So with that in mind, and I know it's only been a couple of weeks since the games, what have you heard and what have you learned from that primarily?
Yeah. So, I'd say there's, starting at the top, I think what's been really encouraging is hearing consistently from everyone how excited people are to kind of grow. They see the opportunity for growth. They want to be a part of it. They want to be supportive. Two, people have really asked for, one of the big themes in conversations I've had is consistency and clarity. And we have this really interesting balance that we need to strike, kind of coming back to this notion of like a clear long-term vision. We have to be able to communicate a vision and strategy that we can all plan around. We also need to remain nimble because some of the things that we try won't work or can be improved. And so making sure that we communicate that in a way that allows everyone in the ecosystem to plan and align around, I think is really, really important for us. And that starts for us, is making sure we've got a clear plan and that we do a really good job with communication. And that's something I heard from folks, a lot of folks who I talked to as well, is wanting to see more communication from HQ, but also recognizing over the course of the last year and a half, that there's been a really marked investment from the team and doing a better job with that.
What were your main takeaways from the CrossFit Games? Because I'm guessing that was a little bit like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I'd say my biggest takeaways were, there were a lot of things that I would have probably said ahead of the games in an intellectual sense that I got to experience in a visceral and emotional sense by being at the games. So starting with just the passion that people have for CrossFit and for the community blew me away. Just walking around and talking to people, you could feel the energy and the pure positivity. I mean, the positivity in walking around the games where you've got tens of thousands of people. It's hot. It's kind of a crazy environment, and yet people are so happy to be there. That was a really big takeaway for me. Two, I was blown away by I thought the team did an exceptional job this year. The games was amazing, and I heard from everyone I talked to that they had a great experience at the games. Getting to see behind the curtain a little bit and understand what it takes, the amount of complexity, 800 volunteers who take their summer vacation to show up and work, all the hundreds of other people who are coordinating every event, from the media side and being able to tell the story, to the logistics of moving an equipment on and off the field, to being able to adjust and adapt to weather changes, et cetera, and it all coming off flawlessly. Incredible hats off to the team. They did an exceptional job pulling that off. And so I have a newfound appreciation for how challenging that is. Big takeaway. And then, I'd say the other piece is, I had this coming in, but I guess the fire inside of me now to go take what we have and work with the team to bring it to 100x more people. It feels like an imperative. It feels like something we have a responsibility to go do, and seeing what this does for people and what the opportunity is.
The games have always been kind of a bright and shiny kind of marketing tool, if you will, for the methodology at the highest degree. But there's so much more to, the community, and you mentioned those 3 kind of pillars. So what do you feel needs to be done, at least from a marketing standpoint, that the other areas of the company are accurately represented, or at least there's a cohesive kind of connective tissue between all of them?
Yeah, no question. This was, coming into the games was a really big focus for the team. This is a big moment for our sport. It's a big moment for our community. And it's a big opportunity for us to expose more and more people to CrossFit. And we wanted to make sure, the team wanted to make sure this, look, the spotlight is on these incredible men and women who achieve incredible things and show off what's possible in the sport. But there's also the other parts of the community where the work's getting done every day. And so we wanted to make sure there's a spotlight on the affiliates. We wanted to make sure there's a spotlight on the stories of transformation that are happening in boxes all around the world. And so there were a few things that the team did this year that I thought were exceptional. Starting on the storytelling side, there was a lot of content this year that was aimed at telling those everyday stories and getting that out there, demonstrating and highlighting the role of the coach, highlighting the role of the affiliate, highlighting how CrossFit is for everyone. I thought the team did an amazing job with that, and that's just the start. We're going to do more of that work. You'll see that content distributed through other channels, and hopefully what we get from that is, again, more people around the world who didn't before the games think CrossFit was for them, walking into their local affiliate and say, hey, I want to be a part of this. The second thing we really wanted to focus on was highlighting affiliates there and making sure they felt like they're doing the work. And so the team did a ton of work. You probably got a chance to check out the affiliates.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was cool. It
was awesome.
Team did an amazing job there. We had a bunch of get-togethers for the affiliates where we had a chance to talk to them and learn from them and hear from them. And so my hope is, and I think we did a good job with this in talking to affiliates, that they walked away feeling and knowing the critical role that they play in the community and the commitment we have to doing a good job of supporting them.
I've always thought that CrossFit did a great job of talking to everyone in the bubble already. How do you break outside of that and expose people who have no idea what this is, and communicate that message to them that, hey, you're welcome here. This is for anybody, and if you come into one of these gyms, you're going to have a really life-changing experience.
Yeah, no question. And this question is so important because it gets to our most important job at HQ. This is our job. Our affiliates do an incredible job. When people walk in the box, we have enormous confidence that their life is going to be changed. We got to get them in the box. And if we're going to reach 100x more people, then we've got to do a good job of telling the story. So it starts with the shift in focus on the media side. You guys have seen, going back, you can go back 15 years and watch these videos that were produced that are just mind-blowing. And so we got to tap into some of the work that we've done. We've got to capture news stories. We got to get them in front of people. And we got to do that at HQ and think about how do we get our story out there? How do we reach people where they are? How do we tell stories in a way that's going to resonate? The second thing we need to do is our affiliate owners are telling the story every day. The best way to hear about CrossFit is from another CrossFitter who walked into a box, whose life was changed, who goes home and say, I didn't think it was for me. It was. Let me tell you about it. And there are things that we are starting to do a better job of supporting affiliate owners so that they can get that message out there. This week, we actually just released an affiliate content kit. It's a bunch of media assets that can be used in every box around the world. We're translating it, localizing it. We're going to get it out there that make it really easy for affiliate owners to get these stories out there, to support authentic stories that are being shared by their box members, for them to share some of the video assets, email templates, et cetera, that make it easier to tell the story. So those are some of the things that we're working on.
For sure. You touched on something there that I felt has always been, I don't want to say a roadblock, but it's been a pretty steep hill to climb, and that's scaling the message accordingly globally to the unique scenarios that each country has, that each language provides, that each culture has within their own little fitness ecosystem. And is that something that has been present so far? And how do you feel in that process, at least through the first few weeks?
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. What I will say is that we have this extraordinary seminar staff that is around the world, that is they're dedicating their weekends to training folks, telling the story, et cetera. We have also invested in, we've got these amazing country managers that exist around the world that are operating on insanely lean budgets, who are in a super scrappy, super creative sort of way, figuring out how to tell the story, support affiliates, and get it done. We got a lot more work we need to do at HQ to support them. And one of the probably biggest challenges that we're going to have is figuring out, with a relatively small team and limited resources, where do we place our bets? But there's a lot of work we need to do. The main site's not translated in most languages. It's in English. Our assets, all these resources that we develop for English language, aren't available in a lot of markets around the world. Those same types of tools that we're investing in with things like the affiliate content kit, we need to continue to work and scale that so that the men and women who are on the ground doing the work, their job is as easy as it possibly can. So this would be a big focus for us.
Yeah. I think this is part of the marketing conversation too, but just when I look at the past, 4 years and how the fitness landscape has changed, COVID, I think, sort of pressed the gas pedal down on that, with people doing more things at home. All these products that you see advertised all the time are, just set this up in your house and you'll get a good workout in. You don't need to leave. You have other chains that are sort of getting in on dipping a toe in the functional fitness waters. What kind of challenges does those present to the growth of CrossFit, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so I think there is, first, there is more noise in this space than there was. Yeah. CrossFit defined this category. It didn't exist. And when you define a category, you get this honeymoon period of getting to benefit from all of it. And you have these other competitors now who have created formats that they market as a functional fitness, et cetera. We got to stand out above that. And look, the good news for us is CrossFit is better than all of them. The results trump everything. I've done them all, maybe not all of them. I've done a lot of them because I really like to test stuff. There's nothing that holds a candle to the efficacy of CrossFit, full stop. And everyone who has done it knows that. What I don't think we've done a good enough job with, that we need to lean in more, is telling the story of actually explaining that. You shouldn't have to do CrossFit for X amount of weeks to know that it's better than everything else. We've got to do a better job of helping you understand that how well it works, and most importantly, helping you recognize that it is for you. We've got to do a better job with technology. So some of the other folks in the space, I think, have done a good job of leveraging. Look, we're not a technology product, clearly, but we need to be able to leverage technology to scale, to support our affiliates, to tell their story, to reach people. The team's been doing amazing work at HQ on it. We have a lot more work to do on this front, and so that'll be a big focus for us as well.
I'm curious, how do you navigate the noise, if you will, even on the media side of things? Because I think that was a big element of the changes that we were a part of. I mean, we're a byproduct of those changes. Because before, it felt like CrossFit had this centralized almost media output and voice, and they were really the biggest, loudest person in the room. And all of that changed, and everything's kind of scattered, and a ton of voices were allowed to grow too, if we're being completely honest. But it also feels like in that process, maybe CrossFit as a centralized figure lost a little bit of that. How do you get that back?
So I think there is, first, as I mentioned before, I think we need to be really, really crisp and clear around how we talk about the brand and how we talk about CrossFit. And we've done good work there, but I think we can be a little bit tighter. And so there's some work we'll do around how do we tell our story more effectively to communicate that CrossFit is for anyone. That's a big part of it. I think we need to, this is an area where we need to lead in the space. And actually, I think the best outcome is that there should be a bunch of other voices who are reinforcing the same messages and reaching the same people. And I think that's a really powerful thing, but that can't happen. Our job is to lead in that. And so we need to be really crisp and really clear. We need to communicate well with the other voices in the ecosystem so that we're all on, again, I think we're all working towards the same thing. Making this pie bigger is good for everyone. And I think there's really early on, maybe it's the honeymoon period, but I think there's real earnest interest in working together to grow this thing. We don't need to squabble over the size, the slice of the pie right now. Make the whole thing bigger. And so, to your point, we need to continue to lead here. We need a really clear, strong voice. We need conversations with the other folks in the ecosystem so we can all move in the same direction together.
We have lived most of our lives in this space, and more on the sport side of things, although gone to affiliates. I think Tommy and I have both coached at times in our lives. How do you where does the sport need to change in order to be sustainable as we continue to move forward? Or have you even had a chance to look at something like that?
So it's week 2.5.
Yes.
So, very big.
I want
caveat
solutions
there.
now, Don.
Exactly. Here's the answer. What I will say is, the starting point for me will be everything we do across the entire business needs to be in service of growth, period. So as we sit down to talk about the future of sport, the first question I will ask is, how does this strategy help us grow, period? How does it help get more men and women around the world into boxes? And again, if we do that, that's good for everyone. That's good for all these athletes. It's good for all of our partners. So we need to think, I think, through the lens of, think about sport through the lens of growth. Two, I really, I know, Coach Glassman talked about, CrossFit is the sport of fitness. And it's not just the sport of fitness for elite athletes. It should be the sport of fitness for all of us. And, I loved early on, I loved participating in the open to some, degree. I'm probably irrationally competitive every day when I show up in the box. I want to win, even though it doesn't matter.
Yep.
How do we proliferate that more? How do we give more people the opportunity to compete in CrossFit and feel like they're a part of this sport at every level? I'd love to see more kids. We have these amazing men and women at the games who are just killing it. I've got 3 young girls. I would love them to see CrossFit as something where they can compete and participate in sport and get the benefits of it. And if we do that again, that all ladders up. That'll just make the games a larger audience, more eyeballs, better athletes, etc.
This kind of touches on we reach out to our patrons for some of our interviews to see if they want to have any questions that they'll pose as well. And we usually filter a few. But this one's from one of our patrons, Katie. She said, what changes have you seen in CrossFit in your 8 years being involved with the sport, both good and bad?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I again, caveat here, this is through the lens of one CrossFitter. So I have felt less energy around the open than I used to. And maybe that's my own personal experience in the box, but I remember very early on really being excited about it. And, I know we've seen COVID was really hard on a whole host of dimensions. So a lot of it was probably due to that. But I'd love to see the type of, and it gets back to our previous question around sport. How do we make this something that, where everyone can really participate in that? So that's something I think represents an opportunity for us. I think, look, clearly we've had the last few years have been lots of ups and downs for the brand and lots of ups and downs for the sport and the community with COVID. And so there's work we need to do to kind of preserve the essence of the magic of the brand, but build on it and grow it. Let's see, what else would I say on this front?
I'll double up and say, what about changes for you physically? Training, anything like that? Your performance in the open, you can throw that. This is your chance to humble brag.
No. What's the opposite of that? Is one of the things I love about CrossFit actually is we have all these high skill movements that are quite intimidating when you start. But for me, there's something you can work at over time. Like I love the fact that I'm 46 years old and I'm getting my first whatever it is muscle up. I'm embarrassed. It took me 6 years to get double unders, which was a product of COVID, where I finally said, this is ridiculous. I'm not leaving the house until I get this. But I love that, for me, that's been a really, that I think is a really important and magical part. And I think people really love it. People folks are drawn to CrossFit because it's hard. People are drawn to CrossFit because it's a challenge and they appreciate the journey and they appreciate the satisfaction of doing things that they may not have thought possible. And so I've experienced that personally, and I think that'll obviously continue to be really important.
There's a ton of people at home with whip marks on their legs just cheering right now. Just totally
You're not alone.
Go ahead, do another one.
Oh, yeah. So this next one is from Jesse. He says, if you were to fast forward 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, what does CrossFit look like at each of those times for you if you're kind of projecting out?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start furthest out, 5 years or so. First and foremost, we've got 5 years, say 10x the number of people doing CrossFit. That's a big stretch goal for sure. But I think big stretch goals are really good. It forces us to think big. And that's around the world. So we've got continue to have really strong growth. We've got a lot of work to do in a lot of markets internationally. So lots of people doing CrossFit. 2, we've got continued work to do on supporting our affiliate community. And the only way we get to that 10x number is by making sure that our affiliate owners can do exceptional work. So I want to make sure 5 years out that, at that point, we have made huge progress in supporting our affiliates around the world. They are today, I believe, they continue to be known as the best coaches in the world. You want a best coach, the best trainer in the world, walk into your local CrossFit box. We have a huge role in that and continuing to invest in the work we do through our training and education work. So that's a really big one. Working backwards from that. So, if it's getting to 10x the growth, we've got a little bit of I'd say a multi-phased path to get there. One of the challenges, there's a lot of work we need to do over the next 5 to 7 years. We can't do it all at once. We have a small team, and every place I've been, I've learned the importance of focusing on the very few but most important things and doing them at A+ level rather than trying to do a lot of things at a B-. The next year and a half for us, we'll talk about internally as the team, is about making sure our foundation is really, really strong. And that'll be about the brand, that'll be about supporting affiliate owners, and that'll be about, on the technology side, making sure we have a foundation where we can leverage technology to support members, affiliate owners, partners all around the world. That then gives us the opportunity to invest in some really interesting and creative things in the 2 to 3 year time horizon.
What is sort of the next big thing on your list, like the one that you're going to get to kind of first?
Yeah, I'm focusing my time on 3 things right now. So first and foremost, it's listening and learning. So spending time with our team, spending time with our partners, spending time with affiliate owners, asking a lot of questions, really trying to gather information, build relationships, build trust. Second thing I'm working on is trying to support the team right now. We are continue to be full speed ahead through the end of the year. We got a lot of work to do. I want to be in service of making sure I can support the team in removing any obstacles. And so that's a lot of time with the team, understanding where do they need help, where do they need support, where can I plug in and be supportive. And then the third thing, which is really critical, perhaps of the 3 most important, is over the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to work on kind of an update for our vision and strategy that goes out. We'll go out probably, what does success look like in 2030? And then if we work backwards from that, where do we want to be end of 2023? So we have huge conviction and alignment around the strategy, our goals, and the work that we need to do over the course of the year. And that'll be a conversation that's informed by our team and the conversations I'm having with affiliate owners and other folks in the ecosystem.
My final question is similar lines, but more personal. What aspects of fitness are you working on right now? Is there something you got in the crosshairs that you're trying to get?
So I'd say there's 2 things. One, I still really suck at ring muscle ups.
Join the club.
So annoying. And I'm just lazy. I don't like doing it. So I need to put the time in to do that. So maybe the next time I come talk to you guys, you can ask me again if I hold myself accountable on that. The second thing is I'm really working on balancing the high intensity work I do with, I'm 46 years old. I need a little time and space to recover. I'm a little bit of a glutton for punishment. And so being really thoughtful about how do I make sure that I'm building an appropriate time for recovery. I'm building an appropriate time. I just actually listened to Chris Hinshaw's.
Oh, yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah, the best.
There's so much goodness there that I have not yet incorporated into how I think about training. So that's another big focus for me.
And my final question is, what is more difficult, being in the Marine Corps and trying to get a bunch of Marines on the same page, or wrangling 3 daughters?
Oh, my God. That's a rhetorical question. You know what the answer is to that. So my 5-year-old last night got up from the table. My wife asked her to do something, and my 5-year-old got up and saluted her and said, "Yes, master." I don't know where that came from. So I'm really nervous for 10 years from now when I've got 3 teenagers.
Did you get a glare at that point? Like,
well,
oh, really?
Well, I laughed and then I got in real trouble.
Yeah. Don't encourage that.
Exactly. It's my fault. Of course.
Oh, man. Well, Don, thanks so much for doing this, man. We really appreciate you taking the time and just sitting here listening to you. I'm really fired up about where this thing is going. I think CrossFit got the right guy.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to continuing the conversation with you guys.